Greetings, beloveds. Welcome to the week of January 11th. I am testing out this new weekly energy reading for the collective and hoping that it lands with everyone and that the messages that you receive from this are the messages that you need right now. It has been an interesting start to 2021. And in numerology, 2021 is the number 5, and 5 is the number of transformation. And we're starting off in transformation. And if we think about a butterfly, before it becomes a butterfly, it's in a cocoon. And before it's in a cocoon, it's a caterpillar. And so there are different stages to this growth process, from being one beautiful being and turning into another beautiful being. But within that cocoon, there is an emergence that happens, and it's not necessarily an easy emergence from that growth process, but a lot of things need to take place within the cocoon for that butterfly to sprout out. And so once we shed that cocoon, it's a process within itself to shed that layer. So what we're seeing this week, and I used the Power Path reading. I looked at some astrology, and I looked at some cards, and everything that I've read has been a dualities and kind of being with this Aries Aquarius feel, as well as leaving the Capricorn energy and being grounded. So nothing seems really to be in grasp right now. Everything seems to be like very unknown. And so this time, especially today being the new moon in Capricorn, is a time to ground and to meditate and to visualize what you envision for this year, what you envision for the next few years as we step into this new age of a lot of planets shifting for numerous years and for numerous months for some of them. And so just being really mindful of how to ground yourself and how to plant seeds for what you want to see come into fruition. And the card that I pulled for this week was the Fire Ant. And the Fire Ant is focused on the past, it's focused on aggression, it's rigid, and it's attracting people to fuel these imbalances. And so, what we had seen at the Capitol, what we are still seeing within the political realm within the United States, it's a lot of holding on to the past, holding on to what was, and as well as people envisioning of what can come. There are a lot of new progressive leaders that are being called into office as far as government goes. There are a lot of laws that are starting to take place that would have been seen as radical before. And so, again, there are these dualities that we're sitting with of the unknown, of progression, of holding on to the past, being very nostalgic, and on some capacity for those that maybe not have done their healing work, it's being very infantile and holding on to the past, and so maybe throwing tantrums and hissy fits. Again, that fire and energy of being very feisty and fiery, especially if we're being rigid and holding on to things that are no longer working for us. So in starting to embrace change, starting to welcome in change and know that change is coming. So the other energy that I pulled was the bottom of the deck. So I didn't pull this, but it was on the bottom of the deck, is the Elk energy. And Elk energy is very earthy, very Capricorn, very grounded, stable, upholding values. And so again, it's this balance of, the fiery energy of the fire ant, as well as the grounding energy of the elk. And so allowing ourselves to sit with the uncomfortable and to have our grounding practices and our clearing practices, letting go of what's holding us back, letting go of what's holding us from bringing these visions that we want to create, so these intentions that we're setting with this new moon, with this new energy, letting ourselves clear what's holding us back in order to bring these visions into fruition. And so sometimes that can be scary. Like, change can sometimes feel scary. The unknown can sometimes feel scary. But if we lean into trusting ourselves and leaning into trusting what we create and leaning into trusting what Great Spirit, God, universe, whatever your concept of higher power, higher collective consciousness, higher entity is, trusting in that process of what we have set forth in this life. You know, we chose to be in this life at this time. And if we think about sacred contracts, you know, how are things unfolding in front of us for us? And how can we evolve from it versus thinking rigidly and thinking that it's happening to us and that we don't have any control or say into how this plays out. So this week, what do we do with this energy? So I pulled a Earth Warriors Oracle card, and it's the sweet paradox of empowering grace, Kinte. And when I see this card, you know, I see the hummingbird, and the hummingbird in the other deck that I have talks about going to your energy reserves, going to places that you feel nourished and that you know will fuel you to fill up for those times of the unknown and maybe times of fear, going back to those rooted grounding practices that fill you up so that you can step into these new spaces, these new changes, these new ways of thinking. And I see in this card some patterns and so many colors, and there's this sense of peace that this woman has, and a sense of like chin up, chin forward, moving forward, and closing the eyes and just trusting of what's to come, and at the same time visualizing what's coming. And I think of medicine work when I see all the different patterns and colors, and that when we are healing and going into those medicine and ceremonial spaces, that those patterns come in. And so really trusting in the greater process, the greater things that are coming, trusting in ourselves, trusting in the universe of bringing these visions that we want to have or want to create into our lives, and leaning into the meditation practices to feel into that space of allowance of change to come in, feeling into that space of trust of what's coming, of what we're creating, leaning into trust of ourselves and what we want to create or what we are creating. I try to take out the word want because it almost invites this sense of lack or the sense of scarcity or that we don't have at this moment. But when we meditate and visualize, really leaning into as if it already is, so that we know what to feel or what that feeling is in this present moment. And when that does come into fruition, when those visualizations come into fruition, we'll feel what that looks like. And at the same time, knowing that things can shift and again change. And so maybe these visualizations that we're having or that we're envisioning for what we want or what we are creating in this life, also not holding on to what that looks like specifically. So again, going back to the fire ant, not being rigid in our thinking, not being rigid in what that will look like when it comes into fruition, and just trusting that everything is playing out for the greatest good of all. So key takeaways from this, again, that paradox of empowering grace, that you are supported in this, and that things may seem impossible, but really nothing's impossible. And know that you're supported. Having a hand on your heart in meditation, trusting and recognizing that that hand on your heart is you recognizing that you trust yourself and that you trust what you're creating when it comes from the heart space. And so again, the key takeaways for this is to meditate, to envision what you want or what we are creating in this life, what you want to create in this life, what you are creating in this life. Feel into that space, feel into what that feels like when that does come into fruition. Go back to your energy reserves, what fills you up, what lights your soul up, what is going to ground you within this reality while still maintaining this airy feel of Aquarius that we're stepping into, of creating this new. So again, embracing the polarities, embracing the change, grounding yourself through it, sitting with everything that comes up, and knowing that these emotions, these feelings, these scenarios are temporary. So trust, believe, envision, meditate, live in the dualities in the present. So I hope that resonates with you. If you have any comments, questions, put them in the comments below. 2021, let's go. Much love, many blessings. Peace.